Hello everyone and welcome to the channel. So recently I asked you to send me questions on my social media channels for an Ask Me Anything or a Q&A video. So here it is. I'm gonna answer some of those questions. And thank you to everyone who sent questions, and if you have more questions, feel free to include them in the comments for future videos. I have a paper with me with the questions written down and some notes so I can keep track of what I'm talking about. So let's get started. The first question is, how do you study? Any specific tips or techniques? Well, first, I try to focus on one topic at a time. So I don't really jump between topics in one study session. I choose a main topic and then stick to it. So let's say OSPF, for example. So I would study something under OSPF, and actually I might still drill into more specific topics like OSPF area types or LSAs that are specific to those area types or something like that. I wouldn't really jump between different routing protocols, let's say OSPF and EIGRP in one study session. There is one exception though, and I'll come back to that later. And then number two, I study in short bursts. So I use the Pomodoro method. Now I'm not sure if that's what it's called, but basically it means studying for 20 to 25 minutes and then taking a 5 to 10 minute break, and then you just repeat. And then after a few iterations I might actually take a longer break or reward myself somehow. I feel like that's the best way for me to learn. So you focus intensely for a relatively short period of time, and then you take some time off to rest your mind and kind of clear your head, and then you start again. I don't really do longer study sessions where I sit at the computer reading something with intense focus for like 3 hours. That doesn't work well for me. My mind gets very tired and I get distracted. And let's see what's next. Number three, I try to study something every day just to keep the ball rolling and so that I don't lose the momentum. Sometimes I don't study much at all, only a few minutes. Maybe I read one paragraph, but just to like continue with the studies, I try to keep it going in any way that I can, even if it's not much effort every single day. And let me see my notes. Yes, another good way that works for me is to use what's called habit stacking. And this is something I learned from the book called Atomic Habits. I highly recommend that book. This is not a sponsored ad, by the way. I just really like that book. So if you want to check it out, there's a ton of interesting information there. But habit stacking means that you pair a new habit with a current habit. So you identify something that you do every day, and then you attach your new habit to it. So it could be something like before I brush my teeth in the morning or in the evening, I read one chapter or something, because that's a mundane activity, an everyday activity that you just perform day to day. So that's like a good cue to use with your new habit that you want to create. And the second thing that I picked up from the Atomic Habits book, I do have days off when I don't study at all, but I try to not do that more than one day in a row, because if you repeat it more than once, then that already starts to develop a habit, a bad habit, because you want to keep studying. So let's see what's next. So number four, I prefer to study in the morning if possible, because that's when your mind is rested and fresh. You haven't used your brain power yet. Your mind is not occupied by anything else yet, hopefully. So it's easier to absorb new information and learn new things. I'm not very good at this because I'm not a morning person. I'm more of a night owl and stay up late to study and sometimes entertain myself, like watch TV series or movies or gaming or whatever. So this is definitely something I should work on and improve. If you just wake up, let's say 30 minutes than you normally do, and you can use that time for studying, that would be very efficient. And let's say, lastly, number 5, and this is something that I wouldn't necessarily recommend, but I multitask with studies sometimes, so I combine it with another activity. But this is only if I'm studying something for a quick review, or I'm working on something that doesn't require intense focus. So let's say that I'm drawing a diagram. So that doesn't require me to fully focus on the monitor intensely, if that makes sense. So I can do something on the side, like gaming, and then use the time when my game or the match is loading to quickly draw something on the diagram, or again quickly check something. But I wouldn't use this technique to learn a new topic, so I don't really recommend this, because you kind of bounce back and forth between two different things. Yeah, so it's not very good. Okay, let's move on to the next question, which is, how do you handle work-life balance? This is actually a good question, and funny enough, I'm outdoors, which is one of the ways that I handle work and life balance, but we'll get to that. Actually, number 1 is clear boundaries with work time. So yeah, I lost my train of thought there for a moment. So basically, when my work time is done, my work stops there. I don't think about work after hours. I don't dwell on it. Work is over for that day when I'm done. This doesn't mean that I have an alarm set whenever my work time is done. I do want to complete the tasks that I've assigned for myself for the day, or have been assigned to me. I don't always get to decide. So yeah, I'm not looking at the clock like, oh, it's 5 p.m., I'm done now, and then leave in the middle of work. That actually reminds me of this funny Disney cartoon where Donald Duck is working at the gift wrapping factory, and he just does not like that job at all, and he's using all kinds of creative ways to get out of work as fast as possible. It's really funny. If you haven't seen it, I don't know, maybe try to find it on YouTube. I see it on TV every year on Christmas. It's in this Jiminy Cricket's Christmas greeting. Yeah, very funny. That just reminded me of that. So yeah, once again, clear boundaries between work and then life. So once again, work is done when it's done. It doesn't mean that I look at the clock and end it when the time or the clock hits 5 p.m. So I do complete my tasks. But after that, I don't think about it, and I do something else. So then, next, number 2 is disengage from technology. So yeah, as I mentioned, I love the outdoors. I come here to relax and just get away from technology and everything, which is ironic that I say that because I'm holding a camera and obviously I have a phone in my pocket. But yeah, there are days when I just switch off and come outside or do something else that is completely unrelated from technology. Yeah, just get away from the computer, basically. And then number 3, it kind of connects with that. So hobbies outside of IT. So yeah, number 3, hobbies outside of IT. And I actually have a completely different side that maybe not many people know about, but I'm quite creative or artistic in some ways. Not very good necessarily, but I do have other hobbies that are entirely different from IT and technology. One of my great passions is photography. I love photography. Again, how funny I said that, disengage from technology and hobbies outside of IT and technology, but then the first thing I bring up is a camera, which is a piece of technology. But anyway, that's for an entirely different purpose. So yeah, photography, I've learned to play the piano a little bit, and recently I've started taking lessons in ballroom dancing. So Latin dances and standard dances. And then other physical activity is very important actually. So just exercising. I go swimming twice a week and to the gym. Actually, I kind of switch those two. So I alternate between swimming and going to the gym. Sometimes I go running as well. I'm not very fast, but yeah, it's nice and refreshing sometimes. It's actually very important to take care of your health, especially because we sit at the computer all day long. So yeah, it's very important to go outside or do some kind of physical activity or exercise to keep your mind and body refreshed and in good shape. So let's see what else. Yeah, so relationships and holidays, I kind of put these together. So it's important to maintain your relationships, spend time with loved ones, and also to take some time off entirely. And if you can do those two things together, it's even better. So if you can go on a holiday with people you love and care about, that's really the best thing. And once again, I don't focus on work. I don't even bring a computer with me for these kind of holidays. Yeah, it's just again spending quality time with people that you enjoy being around. So yeah, that's very important things to remember, not just in work-life balance, but just in life in general, and being happy is you have to take care of yourself and your relationships, especially the close relationships are very important. But yeah, I don't want to go too deep with that. You probably understand my message. All right, let's see what's next. Okay, so let's move on to the next question. When can you confidently call yourself a network engineer? This is an interesting question, and I also have a very vague answer. The short answer is it depends, because I'm sure everyone has a different opinion or a different answer to this question. This is a highly objective question, and I guess each one would have to individually decide when they feel confident and comfortable enough to call themselves a network engineer. I would say for me personally, completing the CCNA was some kind of milestone. So after that, I could call myself a network engineer and have some paper to show for it. Alas, probably a not very good one or an experienced one at that point, but still a network engineer. But yeah, it really depends on your perspective. One person might type a command and configure something and consider themselves a network engineer. Another person might have been working in the industry for several years and completed high-level certifications like the CCIE and still question whether they're a real network engineer. So it's really up to the person to decide when they can call themselves a network engineer, I guess. There's really no right or wrong answer here. I mean, how do you confidently call yourself something that doesn't have a clear measure? So I'll leave that up to you. So let's move on to the next question. How do you get over or learn boring / complex topics in network engineering? Well, my short answer is just do it. And obviously I'm jokingly borrowing from the famous Nike marketing phrase, but something along those lines is actually true. So number one, start slowly in small bites and chew a little bit at a time. So just like if you're trying new food, you wouldn't put like a huge pile of it on your plate and kind of shove it down your throat. You would want to digest and savor it in small pieces, and then add more as time goes on and you kind of get used to it. So that's the same with learning a new boring and complex topic in network engineering. So yeah, consume small chunks at a time and then add more and more. It gets easier to digest and you might even grow to enjoy it. So this is the one exception I mentioned earlier. In the first question, I answered that I don't normally mix topics, that I stick to one main topic, but this is the one exception. So I do jump between topics when I'm learning something boring and complex that I don't necessarily like, I don't find interesting, I don't naturally gravitate towards, or I even want to stay away from. So I just try to sneak it in with other studies. Just take small bites here and there, maybe read a paragraph or two with something else that I'm working on. And then it gets easier and easier to learn more as I understand the topic better. So number two is understanding the most basic idea or getting a high-level overview before moving on to any more advanced concepts within the new topic. So let's consider MPLS, for example. That can be considered a complex topic because it involves so many components. So I would first try to understand what it is and why it is used, and then move on to how it works. So I wouldn't want to dive deep into, let's say, LDP and going into the nitty-gritty details of how that protocol works. I would first want to see it from a high-level perspective and then kind of drill into those more detailed topics. Let's see then. So number three, use your preferred format of training. And this varies for me. I often like to read, but sometimes I learn better when someone explains it to me. And especially with more difficult topics, more boring and complex topics, I kind of gravitate towards video content. I like to hear someone explain it to me. And especially if they can do it briefly in a simple and fun way, that's the best method for me to learn. But again, this really depends on you and how you like to learn and what's the best method for you specifically. So I don't really have one answer for you here. Let's see. So as a summary, study in small sections and mix with topics that you already know and like. Then start with the very basics and build up from there. And finally, use training material that works best for you. Okay, so those were the questions that I wanted to answer. There was another question about moving from CCNP to CCIE and all the study techniques and methods and materials that I use for that. But that is a huge topic on its own, so I want to leave that for another video. So I can come back to that later. And again, if you have more questions, feel free to add in the comments and we can do another one of these videos later if you like this kind of content. So anyway, thank you so much for watching and I'll see you next time.